meeting will not have any Q&A. We ask everybody to listen to what everyone the speakers have to say. If you have a question for that person, we have paper over there on the desk as you came in. Tell who you want to answer the question, fill that out, and we'll make sure that you get it, and they'll get it to you as soon as they can. Thank you very much for that.
So now I'm proud to be second. I'll be introducing you, our Governor, Mike Braun.
I remember those days when I would come to meetings and be lucky for 5 or 6 people to show up. It reminds me of how I got into the whole public service arena. For those of you who don't know, be careful. The school boards are a good place to maybe start. And that's where I got started back in 2004. And I'll never forget that evening. My wife got the phone call, and she was so busy, couldn't do it. She still had her own business and wants to go another 4 years, and she's been doing it for 47 years. So imagine having a tiger like that as your partner. And she wrapped up the conversation by saying, I told you politely that I don't have time to do it, but maybe my husband would be interested. And I almost ran to grab the phone, but it was too late. Had that not occurred, almost certain we wouldn't be here this evening. So it's been a real interesting journey. That was in 2004. I think we still had 2 daughters in high school, 2 sons that graduated. Both of them now work in the business I ran for 37 years. By the way, that's unusual. If you're a U.S. Senator, hardly anyone in the U.S. Senate has gotten there by signing the front side of the paycheck. That surprise you? Now, most of them pivot almost immediately out of law school into elected or appointed politics, and then think they can run the biggest business in the world. I'll get to that in a second. That's the life I left, and now we're back here in Indiana. But when I did decide to run for Senate, that was probably the thing that seemed whimsical by anyone observing. But if you go back to that year, I declared in August of 17, we had just seen something nearly miraculous occur a year or so earlier when a guy named E.T. came down the escalator. I'll never forget, I had a bunch of state reps when all of that was happening because I was still a state legislator, 15, 16, and 17. And I wondered how that was going to work out. And I generally have a pretty good nose of what lies ahead, or you'd get caught in a lot of cul-de-sacs in your life, and politics would be an easy one to get caught in. But they said he's going to win that election. I didn't think there was any way that someone coming out of the world or outside the world of politics could end up becoming president of the United States, until I figured out more than half the country was pissed off with DC and what they've been delivering us now for decades. So look at the wrestling match we've got out there right now. Turn the TV on, and it's sometimes sad because a lot of the things I worked on there now are on front of the stage, and it's still the system that doesn't want to give up what it's been used to, and all they've delivered us is a pile of debt for our kids and grandkids without much else to show for it. So when I got interested in taking that move, it was a long shot. I figured I had a good chance of doing it because I modeled it on what happened on the largest stage. It would beg the question, as hard as you work to get there, why would you give it up? Well, how many of you believe in term limits at the federal level? I would hope so. And when the public's finally interested in it, we got to make sure we get a balanced budget amendment so that we can't do what politicians, career politicians have now done for decades there. So I had a choice. This would have been back in 22. Am I gonna invest another 6 years there? Because Christie is right. There were 3 conservative senators that voted conservative all the time. You probably know one of them, Rand Paul. And right now, he's the only one holding strong on trying to do something to bring debt and spending down. The other one was a guy named Mike Lee. There were 2 others. The guy that ran Florida as governor, Rick Scott, he was probably my best friend there. He took a purple blue state that was in the red financially back in 2010. And you know how hard these politicians say, we can't live within our means, we can't cut it. He turned that state around in 1 year. And he got that state in the red, running in the black his first year, and did it for his next 7 years, and then gave a state over to a guy named Ron DeSantis. You've heard of him. Rick is quiet and methodical and gets things done. Ron DeSantis is a guy that's not afraid to take on the powers to be. So we'll see what happens in terms of, he's done, I think, after this year as governor. But you've seen a lot of things change since Trump came down the elevator. And all I can tell you is the system that he's trying to change, the one that I left, is not going to give up easily. For the other side of the aisle, that federal government is their church or their cathedral, and their growth business rolled into one. And they treat it like they've never taken Finance 101 or know nothing about how simple it would be if you had a little discipline. Just don't spend more than you take in. So I decided it was going to be more worthwhile because the founders, when they built the system, the 10th Amendment clearly says if it's not enumerated, it's not the federal government's responsibility. Well, that meant almost everything other than defense. And look how far we've come. Probably got started when they had a real finance source with the income tax back in, I think, 1913. I think that's when the Federal Reserve was started too. But both sides of the aisle, neither one of them would have ever considered borrowing from their kids and grandkids. Great society. New Deal back when Franklin Roosevelt did it, that was out of necessity. But they never would borrow money for their latest and greatest crazy idea. We've been doing that, ironically, hate to say it, ever since Ronald Reagan cut taxes, which we needed them cut. But even though we were in the tens of millions and hundreds of millions, which is chump change now, they didn't address cutting spending. And it's been on a track ever since to where we've been doing it. So, come back, you run a state, I'm gonna get along with a fairly conservative state legislature. And I had to wrestle through some difficult issues this year. Many of you were there supporting me, wanting us to maybe get more on the big one I wrestled with, and we're not done with it yet. But the amount of stuff you're gonna be able to get done, where you're leading the state, and you got a super majority that I've got a decent relationship with. It could have been different if this past first session didn't end up in a way to where everybody was in a pretty good mood at the end of it. There's so many nuances to being good in politics. It's just not who's got the best price like it is in business with the best service. A lot of other things swirl around. And remember, when you gotta get along, even if they're in your own party, with 50 in one chamber, 100 in another, that takes a little bit of articulation. Otherwise, you can spend all kinds of time and effort and have nothing to show for it. So, This first year went similar to what I thought it would. But I can tell you, in the time that the state has been reorganized on the executive side into a bunch of cabinets, 8 of them, where I've got 8 first lieutenants, most of them from the private sector, not the government, that run those agencies, and we got about 60 or 70 of them, 30,000 employees in state government, so that's a big business. It got used to, over the last 4 years, of growing itself faster than the economy. A lot of people got kind of relaxed, weren't watching their dollars and cents. And I've had to address that, and we're gonna get that back into control fairly quickly. So what we've done in this first session on issues like our high healthcare costs, hospitals, they charge us a fortune in this state. We have some of the poorest outcomes, and we deserve better. Education, a lot of times we send our kids, I don't know if you noticed what happened down at IU. You guys pay attention to that?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, well, we're gonna have a board of trustees that's gonna run that place. Somebody likes it. That place is gonna start running more like Purdue University, where they haven't raised tuition now in 13 years.
Because people are losing their retirement.
Why's that?
It's because people are losing their retirement.
Pardon me, ma'am, we're not taking questions and answers, thank you.
And I'd be happy to talk to you maybe when I leave the place, but we're gonna get through this. You're not gonna please everyone. But our public universities, somebody may be losing their retirement, but you wouldn't be if they were being run more efficiently. And you were maybe doing it from the point of view of what parents and kids would like to see out of the places. We spend a lot of money, and we don't want to produce kids who don't have skills that are marketable and have points of view that don't make sense for how we raise them. So you're gonna find that you're never gonna please it. Remember, you win in a landslide. That's why not too many people get into politics. 6 out of 10 people voted for you. Hardly ever do you hit 60%. It's more like 55%. That means 45 out of every 100 people you see don't like you, disagree with you, or probably both. So you're gonna have to tough through it, and in the end, it's gonna be what is gonna generally make the state better. The reason I've had support is from the beginning, I've never taken marching orders from the powers that be. I've taken it from common sense and from a community like I was raised in that were based upon things like faith, family, community, government being strongest at the local level, not from the top down. That's what the founders tried to get away from. They put their livelihoods and their lives on the line. And they would be embarrassed to see what we've evolved into there.
They'd be embarrassed to see Trump. Yes, they would.
And
Would you please,
No, I wouldn't.
then would you like to leave, ma'am?
I will when I'm ready.
so if you want to interject, do it as I leave, and I will talk to you, not while you're interrupting for other people to listen to. I had the same thing happen up at West Lafayette with about 3 times the crowd. And I stuck around an hour and talked to everyone that had a different opinion. So not sticking around that long, but I will for a few minutes once I'm done here. So what you're gonna get out of this state government is something that many other states have been aspiring to do. You heard it mostly from Florida and Texas. You've heard it in other states as well, unless you want more government, like they dish out at the federal level. I don't think most people here want that. They want better government that helps the broad spectrum of people. And they want people that kind of do what they say they're gonna do, and they can show results. You're gonna get that out of me. Isn't that a simple common sense plan?
Yeah.
Well,
Lies.
we just started, and even for the folks on the other side of the aisle that don't like you, their biggest issue is healthcare. What have we got? A system that doesn't work for anyone. we've gotten more past the reform it in a system that I jumped into that was already a week to 10 days in session, to where we're getting notice across the country for how we've reformed it. And that's taken on the insurance companies and the hospitals, because in that particular issue, which is the biggest thing we spend money at the federal level, it's going broke. It's now up to 20% of our GDP. Most other places it's closer to 12. And we made that kind of progress in just one session. So look forward to more of that. Public safety. You know, we've seen that on display, where 5 years ago is when we had riots across the country, you know, burning down our inner cities. We had an attempt again to where maybe that was going to be repeated in LA. And that's not going to happen, because we've got to have law and order and public safety, or no one's going to come to your downtowns. So that's important. Education. I'm a believer that parents should be in the driver's seat of their own kids' education. I believe they should have full choice in terms of where they want to send their kids, and we're going to have that in 26. And I say that, and I was a member of one of the best public school districts in the state, my hometown of Jasper. All of my kids went there. All my 3 grandkids that live in Jasper have gone there, and they've got other choices. And you know why they choose? Because it's a good system. If you happen to be in Gary, Indiana, which used to be our second largest city, nearly 180,000 people, down to 60,000. Used to have 60,000 in the public school system, down to 6,000 or 7,000. Wouldn't you want a choice for something else? Well, we're going to get that. We're going to have choice throughout the system of primary and secondary, parents in charge, and it's going to be based upon merit, and who's doing the best job of educating is where our kids will end up going. And then, when you decide if you want to enlist, enroll in further education, or most will choose employment, we're going to get that balance to where we teach skills in high school that's going to prepare you to do one of the 3 and not be forced into a trajectory that higher education has been pushing, that you can't be successful without a 4-year degree. The way that has worked is that we've guided kids into that direction. Half of them don't finish. And when they don't finish, they either end up back in the basement because they're not ready to work because they have no skills. So they've lost time, and they could be in debt. Neither one is good. My ideal for a system is teach basic skills, including civics, including personal finance in high school, so you at least know how to balance a checkbook, and to add to the curriculum that is going to build a workforce and the skills that are needed. Make sure you're offering workforce training in high school, even starting in middle school, so that when you become a senior, you can get one of those jobs now, 130,000 of them in our own state, that pay more than 80% of most college degrees. And that would be an electrician. That would be a plumber. The best paying job at Toyota is not on the line. The one that pays between 40 and 50 bucks an hour, that's what the farm kid used to be able to do. When he came off the farm and ended up being the repairman and the mechanic at places. We've gotten away from that, and we've deceived our own kids in terms of what a good life will be. And a lot of it has been directed again from things like Common Core and DC to where they want to see life differently and want it controlled from the top down. Education in K through 12 is 50% of our state budget. So we spend $23 billion a year So divide that in half, that's what we spend on K through 12. We spend about another 3 to 3.5 billion on supporting our public schools, colleges. Ivy Tech arguably is the one that's most important of all of them because it can at least give you skills that the market needs if you haven't gotten them in high school. But I want the whole gamut of higher education, what you do after high school, if you don't enlist. And probably one of the smartest things you could do, like Toyota down in our neck of the woods, a lot of businesses are catching on. They started 4T Academy 7, 8 years ago. That meant 4 local schools had a direct connection into their summer jobs, their after-school jobs, their apprenticeships. They've now expanded it to 8 high schools, including some in Evansville. That's one of the top 10 largest companies in our state that's found a way to build its own pipeline of talent and providing high-paying jobs for those kids that want to do that right out of high school. That's going to be my goal, to expand that across the state, and these companies will shoulder that burden to where it won't cost anything, and they need to kick in more too. Big corporations, public ones, a lot of wealth there. They need to be out there spending money on things like childcare and things that they'll benefit from, and I'll be nurturing that and pushing it as well.
You just cut pre-K. You just cut all kinds of pre-K.
So I'm gonna address that one, even though you didn't ask the question, I told you I'd do that later. Those are one of the things, pre-K. All states are looking to educate kids earlier. But you gotta be able to do it, you gotta be able to afford it. The states that probably are west that may be doing it, they're running deficits. You can't do that. That's why they are losing people, as is California, as is New York, who pushes all that stuff when you don't have a plan to how to do it to where it's affordable and sustainable. That's why they're losing congressional seats. That's why Indiana, any northern state, was the only one that benefited from people moving into it. I couldn't believe that when I read it 2 months ago. You know why? Governor Pritzker and, well, maybe he's doing something here, I don't know. He and their legislature are not offering good value. And that's why people are moving, voting with their feet, and Indiana has been the beneficiary. That's why we're the only northern state that had people moving into it. So all kinds of things that you can do. I view it as a rare opportunity where you've had someone that knows what the issues are on the larger stage, knows how to get along with a legislature. We've done it this first round out, whether your issue is education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's public safety, the whole gamut. We are gonna be entrepreneurial at it. I wanna hear your input. Any questions you have, write them down and we'll get back to you on it. I am gonna be leaving here in a few minutes. Anybody that wants to bend my ear as I leave, you're welcome to do it. You got some other speakers that you're gonna listen to. But if you think that government, regardless of the level, ought to be limited, you never wanna grow it faster than the economy, would you agree with me on that? That's exactly what happened when we had to take on property taxes. We were growing our own local governments, most of them run by Republicans across the state, that didn't have their household bookkeeping conservative hat on, and then we're looking for more than what the taxpayer could afford. All I'm saying is any level of government, don't ask the people or the businesses to pay more than what the growth of the economy can afford. That's been going on in DC, that's why I spent so much time on it earlier. That's not a business plan. That's a plan to go bankrupt as a country sooner or later. So I'm gonna make sure that the resources are there for the things that are important to us. You'll have full access to bend my ear, give me input, give my team input. And it's gonna be based upon the principles that I'll never shrug off or diminish faith, family, community, freedom, and opportunity. There we go. Thank you so much, and I look forward to coming back again soon.
Educated idiots.
What would you like to tell me?
Start teaching
Look,
kids
look.
how to get faith.
Back it up. That's what you like on doing. You can't back it. I love it. That's real rich, dude. Real rich. Super intelligent. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. I'm on vacation next week. See my first. I put on I won't even
Go away!
Educate yourself, bro.